At my father's funeral, Haley stood radiant in her triumph, her smug smile slicing through the somber air as she clung possessively to the man I once called mine, Luke. The same Luke who had once looked at me like I was his whole world. She leaned in, ready to gloat, to twist the knife deeper. But fate had its own cruel sense of timing. The doors creaked open, and in walked my husband. My real husband. The color drained from their faces as if they had seen a ghost. Haley's smirk vanished, Luke's jaw clenched, and for once, I held all the power in the room. By morning, my phone was flooded. 56 missed calls from my mother. I could almost hear her frantic voice, desperate to salvage the perfect image she had spent a lifetime curating. But I let the phone ring, savoring the taste of quiet victory. You see, I grew up invisible. Not in a way that sparked sympathy, but in the way that hollowed you out, piece by piece. Haley was always the golden child, the sun in every room, while I was just the shadow clinging to her glow. I remember it like yesterday, the school play when I was 10 and she was 8. Haley stumbled through her lines, barely remembering half, reading them as if they were the back of a cereal box. But to my parents, she was nothing short of Broadway's next star. Their applause roared through the auditorium as I sat 2 rows behind, gripping the first-place trophy from the science fair, the solar-powered car I built from scratch, the one project that made me feel seen. But no one noticed. Not a single glance. Not a single, "Well done, Ellie." Instead, Dad ruffled Haley's hair, beaming, "You're going to be something special, kiddo." A lump lodged in my throat as the words I craved died unspoken. That night I lay awake, clutching my trophy like a shield against the silence, wondering why I was never enough. And then came Luke, my first real love. He wasn't perfect, forgetful, distracted, but when he looked at me, I felt seen for the first time in my life. His laugh, quiet and easy, wrapped around me like a safety net. He was mine, or so I believed. But Haley saw him too, and what Haley saw she took. It started with little things, a shared laugh, a lingering glance. Then without a second thought, she stole him, just like she stole every spotlight. Our parents, of course, welcomed it. "You can't help who you love," they said, their words sharp enough to draw blood. "Besides, Haley makes him happy." And just like that, I became a footnote in my own story. But life has a cruel way of turning. As I stood at that funeral, watching them parade their stolen love like a trophy, I knew I had finally been handed my moment. They had underestimated me, just as they always had. My real husband, the man they never saw coming, stood tall beside me, a silent storm ready to strike. And as their faces crumbled, I realized this was my stage now. No more shadows, no more silence. I was done being invisible, and for the first time, they saw me. I truly believed he saw me, or at least, I wanted to believe. So, with trembling hope, I brought Luke to a family dinner, praying that for once, my parents might actually approve of something in my life. The house smelled of roasted chicken and garlic, the dining table dressed with Mom's finest china, reserved only for special occasions. Haley sat across from me, her golden hair gleaming in the candlelight, her smile sharp enough to cut. Luke's knee brushed against mine, grounding me in the moment, and for the first time, I let myself imagine that maybe, just maybe, I wouldn't be the forgotten one tonight. But Haley had always played by her own rules. She leaned in, her laugh too loud, too perfect, performing as if the world were her stage. "Luke, you're hilarious," she gushed, locking eyes with him. I saw it. The shift, subtle but devastating. The way his cheeks flushed, the way he laughed back, a little too eagerly. My stomach twisted. I knew that look. I'd seen it too many times. Haley flicked her hair, her voice dripping honey, tilting her head just so. She was baiting him, and I knew it. "Haley, what are you doing?" I hissed, my voice low, careful not to draw our parents' attention. She turned, smiling sweetly, flicking her hair like she was in a shampoo commercial. "Relax, Ellie. I'm just being friendly. Don't be paranoid." Paranoid. That's what they always called me. "Mom, Haley's flirting with Luke. That's not okay." My voice trembled, but I forced it out. Mom barely glanced up, sighed as if I were a child whining over spilled milk. "Ellie, don't make a scene. Haley's just having fun. You're overreacting." She turned back to the sink, water splashing over porcelain. Dad didn't even bother to lower his newspaper. Luke left me on a Tuesday. A gray, miserable Tuesday where the rain beat against my window like it was mocking me. He stood there, hands stuffed deep into his pockets, unable to meet my eyes. "Ellie, I'm sorry. It's Haley. She's different. Exciting." His voice was so small, so cowardly, it made me sick. The pain hit like a blade straight through my chest, but I refused to cry. Not for him. I stared at the man who once promised me forever, who once traced dreams into my skin. "You're choosing her?" My voice cracked, barely a whisper. He swallowed hard and nodded. I saw it then, the flicker of guilt, but not enough. Never enough to stay. And then he walked out, the door clicking shut behind him, leaving me drowning in silence as the rain swallowed his footsteps. I sat there, staring at the empty space he left, the apartment suddenly cavernous, the rain tapping on the glass like the steady breaking of my heart. I wanted to scream, to smash something, to make it all stop, but I sat frozen, hands trembling, breath shallow. And then I thought of Haley, her triumphant smirk, the way she took him like he was some trophy she deserved, and worse, of Mom and Dad, who had let her, who had always let her. Fueled by a rage I couldn't contain, I drove through the rain, my windshield streaked with watery rivers, the wipers shrieking like my heart. I don't remember the drive, just the rage, the desperate hope that maybe, just once, they would care. I burst through the front door, soaked and shaking, my voice ragged. "Luke left me. For Haley." The words tumbled out like broken glass, sharp and painful. "And Mom?" She frowned, but not at Haley, at me. "Ellie, Haley deserves to be happy. Luke made his choice. You'll find someone else." That was the moment I knew. I was done. The rain beat softly against the roof as I stood in the silence of a house that had never felt like mine. I left a note on the kitchen table, my hand trembling so badly the ink smudged. "I'm gone. Don't call." And then I walked away, a ghost finally slipping free of the walls that had held me captive for far too long. The drive to the city was a blur, headlights slicing through darkness, rain streaking down the windshield like the sky itself was weeping. By the time I reached my new apartment, the world behind me had already begun to fade. It was small, cramped, with paper-thin walls and a floor that groaned with every step. But it was mine. I found a job at a rundown diner, my hands shaking as I carried plates, the scent of coffee and grease clinging to me like a second skin. The customers were impatient, the tips barely enough to survive, but for the first time, none of it mattered. I was free. Somewhere between the late-night shifts and the lingering smell of burnt bacon, I found something unexpected. Therapy. Beth, my therapist, had a voice like a lullaby. Gentle, steady, unshaken by the mess I spilled week after week. "Ellie," she told me once, her eyes soft but firm, "you're not invisible. You're just finally learning to see yourself." I wanted to believe her. At first, I couldn't, but I kept going back. Session after session, we peeled back the layers. Mom, Dad, Haley. The years of being the shadow to someone else's spotlight. "You're allowed to be angry," Beth whispered one night. And for the first time, I let myself feel it all. The rage, the grief, the loss. But somewhere beneath it, something new stirred. Hope. One night, when the loneliness clawed too deep, I picked up my old camera. The lens was dusty, the grip unfamiliar, but the weight felt right. I raised it to the window, capturing the jagged city skyline blurred by rain. Click. The sound echoed like a promise. After that, I couldn't stop. I photographed the cracks in the sidewalk, stray cats lurking in alley shadows, the neon diner sign flickering against the night. With every shot, I clawed back pieces of myself I'd thought were lost forever. That camera, it would save me, though I didn't know it yet. Meanwhile, Haley married Luke. I saw the pictures online. Her in white, glowing like she'd stepped out of a fairy tale, with Mom and Dad beaming beside her in a way they'd never looked at me. The church was drenched in flowers, the scene too perfect, too cruel. The ache in my chest was sharp, but I didn't call. I didn't go. I just stared at their happy little fantasy until my thumb trembled and I finally turned off the phone. I was done being their ghost. Haley might have stolen Luke, stolen every spotlight, but she wasn't stealing me. Not anymore. The ache didn't vanish. It lingered like a bruise. But I understood something now. The rain wasn't the end. It was the beginning. I wasn't drowning anymore. I was breathing on my own terms. The city was chaos, horns blaring, strangers brushing past. But for the first time, I felt alive. I worked double shifts, took night classes, exhaustion clawing at me until my bones ached. But every passing grade, every assignment turned in. It was another brick in the wall I was building between me and the life I left behind. One night, after class, my professor stopped me. Ms. Carter, sharp-eyed but kind, placed a hand on my shoulder. "Ellie, you have something special," she said. "Don't let anyone make you think otherwise." I swallowed hard, a lump rising in my throat. And for the first time in my entire life, I actually believed it. After graduation, I took a leap no one expected. I opened a photography studio. It was small, barely more than exposed brick and creaky floors. But it was mine. Every inch of that space felt like a rebellion against the life I'd left behind. Meanwhile, Haley's picture-perfect world paraded itself all over social media, smiling with Luke, brunching in sundresses, planning their dream house. Mom called often, voice syrupy with pride. "Haley's doing so well," she gushed. "They're thinking of buying a house." I gripped the phone, the familiar ache curling deep in my chest. The same story on repeat. Haley. Always Haley. But something in me had shifted. For the first time, I didn't drown in her shadow. I didn't beg to be seen. I let the silence answer, then hung up, the phone heavy in my palm. Instead, I turned back to my camera, focusing my lens on the world that had never once asked me to shrink. Through shadows and light, I rebuilt myself, capturing the city waking up, steam rising from coffee cups, neon signs flickering against the gray dawn. Every frame felt like taking back a piece of me. Daniel noticed first. "You're different when you shoot," he whispered one night, watching me edit. The screen's glow painting my face in soft light. "You're free." I smiled then, really smiled, and for once I meant it. But the past has sharp claws. It lingered, waiting, never fully releasing me. Haley's perfect life still found its way to my screen, her flawless smile, carefully curated happiness. Mom's comments, stuffed with hearts and praise, pricked like needles under my skin. But I kept going. I kept shooting, kept breathing. And one night Daniel took my hand and led me to a rooftop. The city sprawled beneath us, lights blinking like trapped stars. The air was cool, tasting faintly of rain yet to fall. And then he kissed me. Slow, steady, certain. "I love you," he murmured, like it was the simplest truth in the world. My heart pounded, my throat tight. "I love you too," I whispered back, and for the first time the words felt real, but fear gnawed at the edges. Fear of losing him. Fear of being invisible again. I didn't know it then, but the light was already finding me, and the shadows were about to deepen. Haley's perfect world was cracking. I told myself I didn't care, but I did. Late one night, my phone rang. Sienna, my cousin, her voice strained and low. "Ellie, I need to tell you something." Static crackled between us. "Haley's been talking about you. Says you abandoned the family." I exhaled slowly, leaning against the kitchen counter as the smell of coffee curled around me. "Let her," I said evenly. "I'm done." But Sienna pressed on. "She's not okay, Ellie. Her marriage. It's falling apart." My grip tightened. "Luke's miserable," she added. "Dead-end job, no ambition left. He complains all the time." I stayed silent, my chest tight. "And Haley?" Sienna sighed. "She's Haley, but worse. Snapping at everyone, bored out of her mind, restless. She's mean now, yelling at waiters, rolling her eyes at Mom." I let the words settle like dust. Haley, who stole everything from me, was now losing it all. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel joy. I just felt free. It was like Haley was angry at the world, and I nodded silently, even though Sienna couldn't see me. I knew that version of my sister all too well. The girl who had always gotten what she wanted, who took Luke like he was some prize made only for her hands. But now, the shine was wearing off, and Haley had no idea how to polish it back to perfection. Of course, Mom and Dad still worshipped her, clinging to their delusion. Sienna told me how family gatherings hadn't changed. Voices loud, smiles stretched too wide as they bragged. "Haley's doing so well," Mom would beam. "She has it all." But Sienna saw through it, her voice bitter as she said, "They're blind, Ellie. They never really saw her, and they never saw you." The words hit hard, not because they hurt, but because they were the truth I'd always known. The ache I felt wasn't for Haley. It was for the girl I used to be, the one who spent years clawing for their love, for just a scrap of pride. I thought about that old science fair trophy gathering dust, about the dinners where I was invisible, about every night I cried into my pillow wondering why I was never enough. I thought about Luke, about the way he looked at Haley like I was never there, and the way the rain blurred my world the night he left. But as I sat there, I realized something powerful. I wasn't that girl anymore. Sienna and I started talking more after that. She carried her own wounds, parents who pushed too hard, always comparing her to Haley, always demanding more. "We're the invisible ones," she laughed bitterly. It wasn't funny. It was tragic. But somehow it made me feel less alone. For the first time, I had someone in my corner. Someone who saw me. Really saw me. We met for coffee at a little cafe that smelled like fresh muffins and cinnamon. And between sips, she shared her dreams and her fears. "I want to leave too," she whispered one day, voice trembling. I reached across the table, squeezed her hand tight, and meant every word when I said, "You can do it. You're stronger than you think." Meanwhile, Haley's perfect world was crumbling. Sienna fed me the details slowly, like breadcrumbs leading me through the wreckage. Luke was coming home late, his tie loose, his eyes exhausted. "He's drinking more," Sienna whispered. "And Haley?" She was burning through money like it grew on trees. Designer bags, spa days, vacations they couldn't afford. I pictured her dressed to perfection, her smile bright enough to fool anyone. But underneath, the cracks were widening. The insecurity, the slow decay. I told myself I didn't care, but I did. Not for her, but for the girl I'd once been, the one who lost everything to Haley's greed. The difference now? I wasn't the one losing anymore. Daniel noticed before I could say a word. "You're quiet," he murmured one night as the TV flickered across the dark room. He pulled me close, his warmth anchoring me. "Sienna told me about Haley," I confessed, my voice small. "Her life's falling apart." He nodded slowly, his gaze steady. "And how does that make you feel?" The weight of the question pressed hard. Did I feel vindicated, satisfied, or just hollow? "I don't know," I whispered. Angry, maybe. Sad. Relieved, too. Daniel kissed my forehead, his lips warm, steady. "You don't have to feel anything," he murmured. "You don't owe her that." And he was right. I didn't. But that didn't mean the past had loosened its grip. Not yet. It clung to me like a shadow I couldn't shake. Haley's flawless smile. Her picture-perfect life plastered across social media. Every post drowning in Mom's heart emojis and blind pride as if none of it had ever broken me. And yes, it still stung. But I refused to drown in it. So I kept going, kept shooting, kept building, kept breathing. Every night the city became my escape, my salvation. I wandered through empty streets with my camera, capturing the haunting glow of neon lights and the way shadows stretched endlessly down forgotten alleys. Each photo felt like a quiet victory, another piece of myself reclaimed. I didn't know it then, but that strength, earned one shutter click at a time, was what I'd need most, because life was about to rip the ground out from under me. The call came late, static crackling like the universe itself was warning me. "Ellie." Sienna's voice trembled. "Uncle Robert's gone." My breath caught. "What?" "Heart attack. The funeral's next week." I stared at my camera on the table, my hands trembling. The air turned thick, pressing down on me until the room felt too small, too quiet. Grief hit, but so did guilt. Sharp, bitter, suffocating. Years of silence stretched between me and the father who'd never truly seen me. Now he never would. Should I go? I rasped, my voice barely there. Daniel didn't hesitate. His hand found mine, steady and warm. "Not for them," he whispered. "For you. For closure." And so I went, not to be seen, but to say goodbye. Goodbye to him, and goodbye to the girl I used to be. The drive was endless, the sky heavy with clouds ready to burst. Daniel's hands were firm on the wheel, the hum of the radio filling the spaces between the memories unraveling in my head. I thought of every dinner I spent invisible, every trophy that gathered dust, every tear I shed wondering why I was never enough. I thought of Luke, the rain, the note I left behind, and finally, I thought of Dad, distant, cold, the man who never tried to see me. The ache remained, but beside it something else had settled. Strength. I wasn't that girl anymore. I was enough. The funeral was suffocating, thick with incense and the cloying scent of lilies. Mom sat front row, her face pale and tight, hands clutching her purse like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Haley sat beside her, perfect as ever, Luke close at her side. But I was done being invisible. "Daniel," I called, my voice steady, slicing through the murmurs. "Come sit by me." Every head turned. Silence fell. Luke's face drained of color. Haley's smirk faltered. And then Daniel stood, every inch of him calm, composed, impossible to ignore. He walked straight to me, offering a hand to Luke with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Thanks for leaving, Luke." His voice was low, sharp enough to cut glass. "You let go of the best woman in the world. For this." Gasps echoed around us. Haley's lips parted, but no sound came. The cracks in her perfect mask finally showed. Mom's knuckles whitened around her purse, her eyes wide as they met mine. For the first time, really saw me. And I held her gaze, my voice soft but deadly. "Guess she never told you, huh? You always said Haley deserved happiness." I took a breath, chest tight but steady. "I hope you're satisfied." The room fell into suffocating silence, my words hanging heavy in the air, pressing into every corner like a long-awaited reckoning. For the first time, they heard me. Not the quiet, obedient version they'd molded, but the woman who had found her voice. The power of that moment settled deep in my bones, and as Daniel's fingers laced through mine, his grip steady and sure, I felt it, the release. "Let's go," he whispered, his voice a quiet promise. Without a backward glance, we walked away, the door clicking shut behind us like the final nail in a coffin. I left them there, trapped in the silence they deserved. Haley, Mom, all of them. And with every step, I felt lighter. I had said my goodbyes. To Dad, to the girl I used to be, to the prison I'd survived. The highway stretched ahead beneath a sky heavy with stars, and Daniel drove in steady silence while I stared out the window, the world rushing past like the pieces of a life I was finally leaving behind. My mind spun. Images of Mom's tight, proud smile, Haley's perfect little life, the years I spent chasing scraps of love. But somewhere along the way, that desperate girl had disappeared. I wasn't begging anymore. I had built something real, my work, my love, my freedom, and though the ache lingered, it no longer defined me. The storm had passed. The next morning, Mom called, then again, and again. "Ellie, please." Her voice cracked, trembling with something I'd never heard from her. "Regret. I was wrong. I'm sorry. Please, forgive me." The phone was heavy in my hand, years of pain and silence pressing against my ribs. I waited for anger, for vindication, but all I felt was tired. Tired of carrying their guilt, their neglect. "Ask your golden girl," I whispered, my tone sharp as a blade. "She's the only one you ever cared about." And then I hung up. The phone buzzed relentlessly, but I didn't answer. I couldn't. That door was closed. Sienna called that night, her voice careful. "Ellie, it's bad." And I knew. The cracks had finally split wide open. Haley and Luke were falling apart. "Luke's a mess," Sienna said. "He's bitter, drinking too much, coming home late, snapping at everyone." I pictured it. His expensive suit wrinkled, his tie hanging loose, eyes dull with resentment. The man Haley had stolen was rotting from the inside out. And Haley? My voice was quiet. Sienna exhaled. "She's desperate, spending money they don't have, clinging to that perfect image. But it's slipping." I said nothing, my heart steady. I didn't care about her ruin. I cared about the girl I once was, the girl she destroyed. "Mom's alone now," Sienna added, a note of bitter satisfaction in her voice. "Her golden child is drowning, and for the first time, she sees it. But it's too late. I could picture it all. Mom in that house full of echoes, finally tasting the silence she'd forced on me for years. I thought of every moment I had been invisible, of trophies ignored, of tears shed in the dark. I thought of Luke, the rain, the night I walked away, and finally I understood. I had survived. I had won. I owed them nothing, Haley, Mom, none of them. For the first time, I realized I only owed myself everything I had fought so long to find. That night, Daniel noticed my silence, his voice low as he sat beside me, the soft glow of the TV flickering against his face. "You're quiet. What's wrong?" I sighed, leaning into him, his warmth wrapping around me like a shield I hadn't known I needed. "Sienna told me everything," I whispered. "Haley's life is falling apart. Mom's begging for forgiveness." Daniel's eyes searched mine, steady, unreadable. "And how do you feel?" The question hung there, heavier than the years I'd carried them all. "I don't know," I confessed, my voice small but honest. "Angry, sad, relieved." Daniel pressed a kiss to my forehead, soft but grounding. "You don't have to feel anything," he murmured. "You don't owe them that." And for the first time in my life, I believed him. I didn't go back. I didn't answer their calls. Instead, I poured everything into my work. That year, I published my first photography book, Unseen, a tribute to every soul who'd ever been invisible, but refused to disappear. The launch was small, intimate, just Daniel, Sienna, and a few friends who had become my real family. As for Haley, her golden glow dulled, the cracks in her perfect world finally exposed. The storm that once consumed me had passed. I had survived. No, I had thrived. Years later, a letter arrived, creased, delicate, trembling in my hands. "Ellie," it began, my name sharp as glass. "I was wrong. I chose Haley. And I lost you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me." I read it once. Twice. The words blurred. My throat burned, but no tears came. There was nothing left. I'd carried their weight for too long. Slowly, I set the letter down, the paper cold beneath my fingertips. I didn't call. I didn't write back. Because forgiveness isn't always about fixing what's broken. Sometimes it's about finally letting go. And I did. That same night, my latest gallery opened. I stood beneath the soft lights, surrounded by everything I'd built from the wreckage. Shadows and light, fractures made whole. My photographs lined the walls like silent witnesses to the journey that made me. The air buzzed with conversation, the scent of wine and fresh flowers swirling around me. Daniel stood by my side, his hand steady in mine, his smile proud. Sienna laughed nearby, her eyes bright, her voice warm. My family, the ones who saw me, truly saw me. I paused before one photo, an image of a little girl, tucked into the shadows, wide-eyed, hopeful yet hesitant. Me. I stared at that child, remembering every ache. Every night I'd cried, wondering why I was never enough. And then I smiled. "You're not invisible anymore," I whispered, a warmth spreading through me like sunlight after a long, brutal storm. I thought of the road I'd walked, science fairs forgotten, lovers lost to betrayal, family dinners where I was a ghost, the cold rain pounding as I left it all behind. I thought of the diner, the camera that saved me, the man who loved me, the life we'd created piece by piece, strong enough to stand. And suddenly, I understood. I had stepped out of Haley's shadow, out of Mom's reach. I had built my own light, and this time, it was mine. The room was still, thick with something unspoken, and I felt it. Power, freedom, peace. I turned to Daniel, to Sienna, to the life I had forged from ashes, and I knew, deep in my bones, I had always been enough. The storm was over. I had won. Thanks for listening. If this story resonated with you, give it a thumbs up so more can find it. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell for more stories like this. And drop a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time.